Koenigsegg's CEO just made a move that could change the future of high-performance cars forever. It was enough to break records for the most powerful homologated production engine in the world and the fastest production car in the world. While the EV industry races to dominate headlines, Christian von Koenigsegg quietly made a bold decision, one that's about to send shockwaves through the entire automotive world. This isn't just another upgrade, it's a new engine, a new philosophy, and according to Koenigsegg himself, it's powerful enough to shake the entire EV industry. Yes, so it's a technology we've been working on in a sister company, which is actually behind us here, failed in this room. We've been working on it for 20 years. It has been a big challenge. What exactly did he build? Why did he abandon his original plan? And how does this new creation threaten everything electric automakers have been working toward? The answer might just leave you speechless. When speed met luxury, the Regera broke the rules. There was a time when hybrid cars were mocked, slow, quiet, overly practical. The kind of car you drove if you cared about gas prices or felt guilty about your carbon footprint. Then came the Koenigsegg Regera, and it didn't just change the game, it blew it to pieces. In 2015, when it was first revealed, the Regera didn't look like a revolution. It looked like a supercar, low, wide, impossibly sleek. But underneath that sculpted carbon fiber shell was something no one expected: a plug-in hybrid with no traditional transmission, no gear shifts, and no nonsense. It had a 5-liter twin-turbo V8, yes, but also 3 electric motors. Together, they produced 1,500 horsepower. That's not just fast, that's world-bending. The numbers were outrageous. It could accelerate from 0 to 249 miles per hour, and then come to a full stop, all in just 31 seconds. That's not science fiction, that's faster than a Bugatti Chiron. It made the McLaren F1 look like it was stuck in traffic. But the Regera wasn't just about violent speed. It was about proving something deeper, that raw power and refinement could coexist in the same machine. See, most hypercars make sacrifices. They're loud, bumpy, claustrophobic. They're meant to be thrilling, not comfortable. But the Regera quietly ignored all that. It had soft suspension for daily driving, a quiet cabin, quilted leather seats, touchscreen infotainment, heated seats, even cup holders. It didn't feel like a race car trapped in a tuxedo. It felt like a luxury lounge capable of blowing the doors off anything that dared pull up next to it. And then there was the Koenigsegg Direct Drive. No gears, no shifting, just a hydraulic coupling that connected the massive V8 directly to the rear axle. Under 30 miles per hour, it would slip, allowing the engine to build revs. Above that, it locked in, unleashing power with terrifying immediacy. This wasn't just engineering wizardry, it was a rejection of the status quo, a refusal to play by anyone else's rules. What's even crazier is how easy the Regera was to live with. Power-adjustable seats, rain-sensing wipers, wireless charging, active damping. Everything about the car whispered daily driver, even as its exhaust screamed like a banshee. It was civil when you wanted it to be, savage when you needed it to be. Only 80 of them were built between 2016 and 2022, each handcrafted and sold for around $2 million. Today, you'd be lucky to find one for sale under $4.5 million. And even if you could afford it, good luck catching it. The Regera was never meant to be just a fast car. It was a message, a warning shot, a declaration that hybrid didn't have to mean compromise. But that was just the beginning. Because while the world was still trying to make sense of what the Regera had done, Koenigsegg was already looking further ahead, testing, tweaking, and pushing the limits of what a hybrid powertrain could really do. The Regera had shown what was possible when you ignored convention, but what came next would make even this monster look tame. Anatomy of a revolution. What made the Regera so different? To understand just how far ahead the Regera was, you have to pop the hood, metaphorically anyway. Because what Koenigsegg built under that carbon fiber skin wasn't just fast, it was fundamentally different from anything that had come before. The Regera wasn't born out of tradition, it was a product of rebellion. Most performance cars start with a layout, engine, transmission, drivetrain, and then they chase power. Koenigsegg flipped the formula. They started with the question, how do we make something brutally powerful, beautifully smooth, and completely unlike anything else on the road? The answer, eliminate the gearbox, remove the complexity, and replace it with a hydraulic coupling that connects the internal combustion engine straight to the rear wheels. No shifting, no lag, just instant force. That system, called Koenigsegg Direct Drive, KDD, changed everything. Below 30 miles per hour, the coupling slipped, letting the engine rev freely. But once the car picked up speed, the system locked in, and the result was raw, uninterrupted acceleration. No pauses, no clunks, just a smooth surge of power that felt less like driving and more like being launched. Then came the hybrid system. 3 electric motors, one at the crankshaft, smoothing torque and acting as a starter, 2 more on the rear axle, each producing 241 horsepower. They weren't there to save gas. They were there to punch the laws of physics in the throat. Together with the V8, the electric motors allowed the Regera to hit absurd performance figures, but they also gave it 22 miles of pure electric range. Not because it needed to be clean, but because it could. The battery that powered those motors was a marvel of its own. 800 volts, capable of discharging 670 horsepower, and it weighed only 141 pounds. That's less than most suitcases. And yet, this featherweight powerhouse could regenerate energy faster than most EVs could spend it. It was efficient, but in the way a loaded rifle is efficient. Aerodynamics, active ride height, adjustable suspension, intelligent. The Regera didn't react to the road, it anticipated it. The car crouched at high speeds, wings and flaps adjusting to create nearly 1,000 pounds of downforce at 155 miles per hour. The suspension and engine mounts even changed their stiffness depending on how aggressive you were driving. At low speeds the car stayed quiet and composed, but open it up, and the entire chassis transformed into a low-flying weapon. And still, Koenigsegg didn't cut corners on comfort. Inside the cabin, quilted leather, carbon fiber trim, and a center-mounted touchscreen, heated seats, soft-closed doors, cup holders. You could adjust the pedals and steering wheel to fit your body like a glove. There were even parking sensors, rain-sensing wipers, and a rear-view camera. Most supercars give you a helmet and a prayer. The Regera gave you refinement. This was a car that blurred every line. It didn't behave like a hybrid or a Grand Tourer or a hypercar. It just redefined all of them. And while other automakers were obsessed with shaving weight or chasing lap times, Koenigsegg quietly built something smarter, stronger, more elegant. But that elegance wasn't weakness, it was the quiet before the storm. Because while the Regera was thrilling the few lucky enough to own one, something else was quietly in development. Something Koenigsegg wasn't ready to talk about. Not yet, but whispers were beginning to circulate. The Regera had changed how we look at hybrids. What came next would change how we looked at everything else. The Regera wasn't just ahead of its time, it was so far out in front that for a while nobody even tried to chase it. But as the years rolled on and the EV boom took over the headlines, it seemed like the rest of the world had finally caught up. Or so it looked on the surface. Tesla pushed performance boundaries with the Model S Plaid. Rimac blew minds with the Nevera's instant torque and blistering track times. Legacy brands like Ferrari, Porsche, and Lamborghini began sprinkling hybrid systems into their most iconic models. Even Bugatti joined the club, whispering about electrification and sustainability. Everyone was talking about the future, and the future apparently was electric. But here's where things get interesting. As the EV narrative began to dominate, Koenigsegg didn't follow the herd. They didn't rush out an electric hypercar or slap together a concept for press buzz. In fact, Christian von Koenigsegg and his team went quiet, unusually quiet, and in that silence, speculation started to swirl. Had Koenigsegg peaked with the Regera? Were they preparing to go all in on EVs like everyone else? Or were they planning something even crazier, something the EV crowd wouldn't see coming? That uncertainty made every move from the brand feel intentional. Every new announcement was dissected, every teaser interpreted like scripture. And yet nothing concrete. No production EV, no shift in direction. Just the quiet hum of something being built in the background. Meanwhile, the industry kept pushing forward. The Rimac Nevera officially claimed the throne for electric acceleration. Tesla promised self-driving tech and sub-2-second sprints. Even Mercedes jumped in with the AMG 1, using F1-derived hybrid systems to stay relevant. On paper, it looked like the tide had turned, but there was something missing from these EV and hybrid experiments. A soul. They were fast, sure, but sterile. They lacked the raw, unhinged spirit that made something like the Regera so compelling. Koenigsegg knew this, and they weren't about to give that up in favor of quiet motors and software updates. What's even more telling, despite all the EV progress, no company replicated the Regera's formula. No one tried to ditch the transmission, no one balanced brutal combustion with elegant electric support the way Koenigsegg had, and no one came close to matching the Regera's 0 to 250 km/h time. For all the talk of revolution, Koenigsegg was still holding the crown, but even empires need evolution. And behind the scenes, something was moving. Journalists began noticing odd things, Koenigsegg applying for new patents, changes to their testing schedule, a suspicious absence of public prototypes. It was like they were working on something big and deliberately keeping it hidden. And Christian, when asked directly about future projects, smiled the way someone does when they know something you don't. Then came a curveball, a whisper of a new test vehicle, a Frankenstein build that wasn't quite a Regera, and definitely not a Jesko. People started wondering, was Koenigsegg preparing for a return to their roots, a pure combustion car, a next-gen EV, or something else entirely? The rest of the auto industry kept moving, eyes fixed on electric futures, but Koenigsegg had never followed the crowd. They weren't about to start now. Something was happening in that Swedish lab, something no one was quite ready for. And while the world kept chasing faster 0 to 60 times, Koenigsegg was planning to change the question entirely. Because when you've already built the world's fastest hybrid, where do you go next? The answer was coming, and it wouldn't be whispered, it would be shouted, with fire, fury, and the roar of an engine that would make the EV world shudder. The Chimera appeared, a glimpse into Koenigsegg's secret playground. In 2024, something strange rolled out of the Koenigsegg workshop. It wasn't announced with a flashy press conference or hyped months in advance. It didn't even have a dedicated webpage, just a few photos, a name, and a ripple through the car community that quickly turned into a wave of speculation. The car was called the Chimera, and it looked like Koenigsegg had gone rogue. At first glance, it seemed like a Frankenstein creation. The body had elements of the Agera RS. The engine came from the Jesko, and somehow, Koenigsegg had squeezed in the manual transmission from the CC850, complete with a gated shifter and an analog feel. None of it made sense, and that was the point. This wasn't a prototype for a new model. It wasn't a teaser for the next big release. The Chimera was something else entirely, a testbed, a rolling experiment built to see what was possible when you stop worrying about what people expect and just create. And what they created was wild. Underneath the carbon fiber body sat Koenigsegg's 5-liter twin-turbo V8, the same monster that powers the Jesko. That engine alone can deliver 1,600 horsepower on E85 fuel, and with no hybrid assistance, it's a raw, visceral power plant, more brute force than technological marvel. But pairing it with a 6-speed manual transmission? That's where things got interesting. Most manufacturers are moving away from manuals entirely. Some see them as obsolete. Koenigsegg, instead, gave the Chimera a gearbox that could switch between manual and automatic, a clutch pedal when you want it, a paddle shifter when you don't. It was mechanical freedom on steroids. Inside the cabin, everything screamed driver-focused, stripped-back controls, analog sensations, and just enough digital support to make the ride survivable. No one expected Koenigsegg to go this route, and that's what made the Chimera so fascinating. It was unpredictable, it was chaotic. And it was telling us something, just not in words. Because while the world assumed Koenigsegg was going to follow the EV trend or lean into the Regera's hybrid elegance, the Chimera showed us something different. They were still experimenting, still pushing, still refusing to be boxed in. Was this a return to old-school performance, a farewell to hybrid tech, or a distraction from something else happening behind the scenes? The Chimera didn't answer those questions, it just raised more. It also reignited curiosity about Koenigsegg's next move. This wasn't a company that did one-offs for fun. Every model they build, every piece of tech they develop, leads somewhere. The Jesko evolved from the Agera. The Regera's KDD system was years ahead of the competition. The CC850 brought back manual driving without sacrificing modern power. So what was the Chimera for? Some believed it was a tribute car, a passion project for Christian himself. Others suspected it was part of a deeper development program. But one thing was clear, Koenigsegg wasn't settling into any predictable rhythm. Thank you for tuning in. If you enjoyed the story of Koenigsegg's unexpected move and the bold innovation behind the Chimera, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe for more in-depth automotive insights. Drop your thoughts in the comments. What do you think Koenigsegg's next big move will be? Until next time, stay curious and keep pushing the limits of what's possible.